in the past, for them, they also believe the story, or maybe they invent the story that the revolution will end soon. I think this is still ongoing. Like next year we'll win. Like lots of people are involved in this narrative. So that's why we don't need to think much then, but proceed like business as usual. We need to just continue. But right now I think people are not believing this narrative anymore. So I think they got to change.
Hello and welcome to What's Happening in Myanmar, a weekly show from the Frontier Myanmar podcast family. I'm your host, Luke Corbin. It's Thursday, March 27, and today, for episode 21, we are joined by Ye Htet, trainer in nonviolent resistance from the Freedom Fighter Myanmar organisation, to discuss nonviolence and transitional justice in Myanmar. But first, we'll cover some developments this week in forced recruitment and conflict. Amid water, electricity, and cash shortages in Rakhine State, the Arakan Army, or AA, has begun forcibly recruiting eligible men and women in the state for military service. This reflects a need for soldiers after nearly 2 years of consecutive military operations and territorial gains, and there are rumours the recruitment drive will be institutionalised with some form of conscription law. While the AA has been accused of forced recruitment in the past, it was generally ad hoc and unsystematic. Their new system may be more like what the Myanmar military has been doing since early last year. Tens of thousands of unwilling men and an unknown number of women have been pushed into mandatory military service for the Sitdat since February 2024, and just this week, details of a new lottery draw for recruits in Aung township of Mandalay was spread on pro-military social media. The lottery was held under the watchful eyes of dozens of soldiers and militia members and accompanied by threats to residents, according to those who spoke to Myanmar Now. Reports of corruption and violence have followed the military's conscription drive from the very start, and on Thursday, last week, the Deputy Commander-in-Chief, General So Win, admitted for the first time there had been financial corruption and difficulties for some conscripts. He blamed the regime-appointed recruitment committees, ignoring the well-known and widespread corruption within the military itself. It should also be noted that forced recruitment has long been used by other ethnic armed organisations, particularly in Shan State. And all that recruitment continues the war. In battlefield updates, at least 19 civilians were reported killed in the last week by military airstrikes on villages in the dry zone. The dead included at least 2 children, a pregnant woman, and 2 elderly, including a 76-year-old monk. The military also scrambled bombers, paramotors, and drones to defend against the Arakan Army's push into Lemyethna township in Irrawaddy region this week. The AA is continuing to bolster its positions in village tracts along the Pathane River, and its columns are getting closer to threatening the city of Pathane, as well as large military bases and factories in the area. Over in Karen State, the Karen Information Centre reported that the Aung Zeya column has now entirely withdrawn from the Asia Highway section between Gokarate and Irrawaddy, leaving behind land littered with mines. The column failed entirely in its objective to take back control of the road to Irrawaddy after the Karen National Liberation Army took it over in April last year. That group is now pushing to take another military base close to the Thailand border, displacing about 100 people into Thailand over the weekend and putting the Thai armed forces on alert. They even deployed 2 F-16 fighter jets to the border on Monday. And Chinese brokered talks in Kunming between the military and the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, or the MNDAA, ended on Saturday without any agreement over the future of Lashio. Rumours have swirled that the MNDAA could withdraw from the town as a result of Chinese pressure and their ongoing ceasefire with the military. Lashio has been largely spared from airstrikes since the January ceasefire, and now residents are concerned that they could restart given the failed negotiations. In the face of these continuing military setbacks and the increasing airstrikes on civilians this year, coup leader Senior General Min Aung Hlaing this week declared Myanmar's conflict to be, I quote, an inextinguishable fire, but only because of foreign encouragement and interference. He made these comments at an international forum held in Naypyidaw on Friday, organised by a think tank under the military's Ministry of Information. The forum aims to, I quote, counter the baseless accusations to promote the country's image. If you want to know more about how the military's brutal air campaign is increasingly utilising civilian aircraft and paramotors to target resistance forces and civilians, check out this week's Political Insider newsletter by Te Aung and Doug Long. If you don't have access to it, please consider becoming a Frontier member. You'll get daily updates on what's happening in Myanmar with English context and analysis, and even translations of Myanmar local media and social media posts. You can get it all for less than the price of a slice of pizza each week. Go to frontiermyanmar.net/membership or email members@frontiermyanmar.net to get involved. Now, with all this talk of war and conflict, it can sometimes be easy to forget that most people in Myanmar are not part of an armed resistance movement. But that doesn't mean they accept military authorities either. Today, I'm pleased to introduce Ye Htet, a scholar and trainer in nonviolent resistance, to hear his views on that side of the revolution and the pursuit of justice. He's just published an opinion piece on the Frontier website about transitional justice, and in 2023, he published an opinion piece titled It's Time to Rethink the Civil Disobedience Movement. Hello, Ye Htet. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's so great to have you. To get us started, could you just tell us maybe a little bit about what your organization is, Freedom Fighter Myanmar?
So it's founded after the coup during the February and March of nationwide protests and civil disobedience movement. Me and some of my friends went to contribute and take part in the movement. At the time, we are very skeptical actually about the movement. So like there are protests, there are senior, but we don't know how people on the street or like people like the teachers not going to school will make the military to lose their power. So we don't know the connection. So we try to learn the literature on nonviolence. So from there, in the beginning, we try to be more like a think tank. We try to educate and also create resources for the student activists and strike committee. And gradually we extend our trainings and workshop to general public and other people who might be interested.
Thank you. Sounds good. So nonviolent resistance, this method to resist authorities, it has a huge history in the region. In India, British India, East Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and Burma, of course. The most famous proponent of it in Myanmar, I think everybody would agree, is Aung San Suu Kyi. She hasn't been able to engage with the public since being detained again in 2021. How do you evaluate the legacy of her consistent advocacy for nonviolence since 1988, given we've had another coup?
Yeah, I talk about San Suu Kyi legacy very often because he's like an icon for an nonviolent movement. But the thing is, like, I feel like her teaching about freedom from fear and the revolution of the mind and spirit is a very core philosophy of nonviolence, very similar to Gandhi or Martin Luther King. But the thing is, I feel like it is just the idea, I would say. What I mean is like, yes, Aung San Suu Kyi has this idea, there's some writings about it, but I feel like in Myanmar context, there are no institutions or movement try to teach her philosophy. So even NLD don't have people working on that, I feel like. So like, And also lots of people in Myanmar admire her mostly because of her charisma or her legacy associated with Aung San. So rather than her nonviolent ideology. So like there's a gap I feel like that it will be we're reflecting on it. Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting take on her legacy. Well, here we are in 2025. I think most listeners, they're familiar with how the civil disobedience movement was overtaken by armed revolt in late 2021. And here at Frontier, and elsewhere, like we report on clashes, airstrikes, killings, all these things that are occurring daily across the country. But, the last 3 years, the military has been weakened strategically, institutionally. Most armed groups, they seem confident about eventual victory, whatever that is. So given the current situation in the armed revolution, why rethink non-violent resistance now?
Yeah, I think it's more than ever it's needed because I think in the past 2 or 3 years, people thinking armed resistance will be quick. It's like within a year or two, it will take over military, maybe with some of the international help. That's the expectations from young people. But right now, lots of people change their expectation. They know from the realities that it will take long because it's gaining territory, it's a thing, but there are also numerous problems in the liberated areas again. Also, with Russia and China backing up to military, it will be impossible, I would say, to take over Naypyidaw without the cooperations of the internal military. So people are start thinking about it. So and also lots of people want to take part in the revolution. Most of us. But the thing is, right now, the armed resistance get very limited way of participation. Whether you donate, whether you clip, or you take part in the arms. So it's very limited. So I think people are exploring options, and I think it's important because for nonviolent activism, I think it's more ground up, it's more bottom up because we are thinking from how we can make the change. Whereas armed resistance, like one region will take over another region, and there will be top-down systemic change. So I think people want to explore option. Yeah, that's my feeling. Yeah.
Right, but in the current context, when you're talking to people, what do you actually say about nonviolent resistance? I mean, when the person you're talking to might be being actively persecuted, being made into an enemy by the military, if nonviolent resistance involves so much suffering, how can you maintain it and not give up and, conform?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the reverse could happen because the more we suffer, the more we would like to respond, the more we would like to change. Because normally pain is a signal to change. So we feel lots of pain every day. So we want to change. So we need some way to make change possible or make sense. So I think that's where nonviolence movement activism can help or can use. Lots of people ask how to change military reaching with nonviolence. It's almost impossible. For me, it's always impossible. What's Nelson Mandela said, it's always impossible until it's done. If you look back, slavery, gay right movements, women rights, other thing like the segregation in South Africa, everything, it's always seems impossible until it's changed. So how to make possible? So that might be the question. Maybe I'm a motivation speaker, but but to make things possible, I think we got to see the interconnection. Rather than seeing the military as a whole, we need to see it's a connected system. So it's not just military. There's a exploitative crony capitalism there. There is a conservative Buddhist orthodox in there, orthodox Buddhist that's conflicted with the political power. Or there's a cultural construct there. So many yeah, they are so lovely culture, Myanmar culture there, but at the same time, there are some culture we need to amend, like very top-down teaching, whether in family or whether in school, or so many things that we think discipline is it's better than freedom. So there's something we need to adjust because the time has changed. So like if you think military, we might think impossible, but if we think we are also taking part in the system in some way or another, then we know how we can change. So we need to think how we are participating in this unjust systems. So only then we can change. But right now, the war narrative was say military is the only problem. We are good, they are evil. But that is not true, I would say, because we are living in the system for quite decades, because there are so many things we are connected. So we need to see, if we don't like the military dictatorship, we need to first disconnect our connection, our contribution, or we are somehow influenced, but also we influence again. So like we become cause and effects in the system. So we need to stop these things. And then we can make something possible. Yeah.
Right. But and what about your organization and your trainings in particular?
Yeah, our approach is like in the early years, like 2021, 2022, we are more focused on strategic dimension of nonviolence. So like how to be strategic, how to make campaign more effective, how to use a communication strategy. So gradually we feel like that's not enough. Like, like the making campaign and making movement is good, but there needs to be a deep philosophy behind. So there we start to learn about the principle dimension. So how Gandhi think, how Martin Luther King think, or we try to teach we need to adjust with the culture in Myanmar. So only then it's work. Like we need to connect with the religion, we need to connect with the cultural dimension, with the non-violence movement. Only then I think that's the thing. Like whether it's Gandhi, he tried to use the like Hindu ideology, or King, he used the Christian institutions, the Christian ideology. So like in Myanmar, we use the Buddhist idea called middle way, the Missima Dipada, which is like basically we try, rather than reacting to the effects, we try to solve the cause with balancing and also without extreme ends. So that's but in Myanmar, I feel like, I don't know whether you know like the Myanmar meanings. Myanmar, Myan, and Ma means like Myan means like it's very quick, and Ma means it's very rigid and very strong and very hard. It's very relevant to Myanmar context. It's like we want things very quick and very hard way, very masculine. That's how our history has been constructed. So we try to a bit soften that part, like try to be moderate and middle, and so that's our core idea. We use lots of other idea about like from Gandhi or from Dosu. Um, I think the idea is also important for long-term movement. For short-term for campaign, its strategy are important, but I think to cure like things in Myanmar, it needs to think for decades. So it's better to have a strong ideological base. So we focus more on that dimension. In the recent year, we like translate books about spiritual developments and healings and these kinds of things. So yeah.
Okay, Ye Htet, that's great. Thank you for that background and those thoughts. Now, over this last weekend, you published an opinion piece in Frontier Myanmar, which is about rethinking justice in the present. That's what it's called. Particularly transitional justice, sometimes called TJ. So you write that discussions about transitional justice in Myanmar too often conflate justice with retribution. What do you mean?
Yeah, so over the last 3-4 years, like the justice narrative has become very popular because of seeing the atrocity, the activists or the civil society or the revolutionary actors, they want to do something, and they think justice, transitional justice, could be a mechanism to make accountable for the regime of all the wrongdoings, and also to deter the current atrocities. So that's the idea, I think. it's good, but I feel like it's not effective. The intention might be good. It's good, but there are more to thinking about the current strategy. The current mainstream narrative, because I met a lot of youth who attend this training, TJ training. It's very popular. But the thing is like, after I asked, so what is TJ and what can we do to participate in TJ? They said, every people said like, we got to document now, and there will be justice when there is the revolution win, and everything will be accountable at the time. So we're just hoping something will happen in the future, and we are expecting our documents will help. So I feel like it's only at the stage it cut off our agency, and we're just hoping that there must be some punishment in the future. So I feel like this, we got to keep that long to ourselves, and also we got to rely on the future punishment. So I feel like it's not productive, and it's kind of waste of our time and resources. And yeah, there are alternative way we can think of if we are not relying on the punishment too much. There's so many things we can do now. So like that's my opinion. Yeah.
All right. What kinds of things can be done?
So there are two approaches, like from top down. Yeah, the politicians and revolutionary leader, they need to think about the structural construct, whether there's enough check and balance, and whether there's enough resources and also provision for the judiciary sectors. So that's apart from the top down change. I'm not favor of that part, but there need to be change also top down. But there's also I think bottom up change that needs to be done. Most of the time when we say justice, we are saying about the criminal justice or the retributive justice. Like justice is served when someone is punished, someone doing bad is punished. So like, in that sense, in criminal justice sense, we need to rely on some authority to do justice for us. So this is the normal traditional style. But there are other alternatives. There are restorative justice, which is very relevant to my field, nonviolent activism. So it's about how to repair rather than punish, how to repair the relationship, how to see the problem as an interconnected system. So it might be the individual component, but there might be also a community involvement or the structural involvement, combining in every wrongdoing. So we cannot just saying this is one person's fault. There are always something behind already, always. So we need to unpack these things, and then people can learn and how to change. So this is a very, I would say, a very proactive approach to heal and also to stop the wrongdoing again. So I think this is a core idea of justice, rather than to punish someone, to repair harm in the future, because actually the harm is already done. So what we can do is to repair harm, ongoing harm, to the people affected, and also to make a lesson that we cannot repeat the mistake again. So this is what I think community can start involved. It could be many ways. Like normally there are like traditional community justice. Also there are like religious justice system there. So like there's so many ways. The art can be also a part of healing and justice. So like there are so many things we can think creatively if we are not relying too much on the retribution, which needs the state power. So there are so many ways. We don't need that much power, but we can make a change in the justice. Yeah.
That's great. But, there are still so many different justice systems running in Myanmar right now, different administrations all exerting this state power. The military obviously has one. The United League of Arakan has one. The National Unity Government, or the NUG, has one, the Ministry of Justice, which in particular has had years now to show that it takes crime and justice seriously, put runs on the board, so to speak. But I think most observers would be pretty disappointed with how it's handled the crimes that it's made public or commented on. What do you think there?
Actually, I don't have much information about Ministry of Justice. I feel like it's largely inactive. It has very low capacities and very few resources, very few people working on that department. And yeah, they make some announcement, but I don't know whether there's effective implementation even in any cases. Because for military case, they cannot involve because it is on the Ministry of Defense. So like they're very, and also I feel like there's one major big problem there. It's like one of the key problems in Myanmar conflicts is that there is no judiciary freedom. There's no separations of power, and There's no check and balance. That's the foundations of dictatorship and authoritarian regime. And that happens when the military rules, and also that happens when NLD rules. So this culture is also involved in, I think, in NUG also, that Ministry of Justice it's part of NUG, which means under the executive orders. So it's if we want to change a new revolution, if we want to end the dictatorship, then I think we need to empower more on the justice part rather than, for me it's more like right now it's more like it's a working group thinking about how to bring justice. It's a good thing, but I don't think it can bring much impact to the revolution current. Yeah, they have very limited resources and power. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, how can the NUG increase its resources or its power? Or maybe more importantly, how can the NUG be better influenced by the wider revolutionary public and by young people who are giving thoughts of revolution, so much time?
Well, it's the same as, I think, military. I mean, in the sense that they're like state actor or try to be state actor. It's also, again, it is an interconnected system again. So NUG is not just one person. It's a system made of there are lots of supporters. So right now, NUG main power coming from the social media, I would say, from the mainstream media and also the social influencer. And also, I think the guilt of the diaspora people. Because there's a guilt, we cannot criticize anything. Because we are privileged already, then we cannot criticize to the people on ground, people who are holding arms. CDM, we cannot criticize because they are sacrificed. So this guilt is trapping us to create conversation, I think. So the guilt could be a part we need to reflect on. And the other dimension will be the mainstream media. So yeah, if the mainstream media narrative, because relating to TJ also, in the post-coup scenario, the mainstream media consider themselves as revolution medias. They blur the line between journalism and propaganda. So propaganda means that, of course, there's a good intention to make the revolution win. So there is a dilemma between which information is better for revolution to win, or which revolution is people to see the truth. So there is a true dilemma I think the mainstream media are now facing. In the past, for them, yeah, they also believe the story, or maybe they invent the story that the revolution will end soon. I think this is still ongoing. Next year we'll win. Lots of people are involved in this narrative, so that's why we don't need to think much. Then, but proceed like business as usual. We need to just continue. It's going well. Yeah, but right now I think people are not believing this narrative anymore. So I think they got to change. So I think that's why I'm not just spotlight to the mainstream media, but there are so many other dimensions, of course, involved in the NUG. The war that we cannot get our voice into because there is a close circle that are supporting, and they are also disregarding other voices, and so I think the accountability needs to be coming from all the pillars. So then I think NUG will be more effective, more democratic, and more, yeah, they'll be more authentic. Yeah.
Okay, if we're thinking about solutions, right? A non-violent solution to Myanmar's political crisis, or even just progress towards less violence in Myanmar, and therefore maybe potentially transitional justice. I think, political dialogue, most people would agree, is necessary. Now, there are always murmurs here and there that the NUG will negotiate with the Myanmar military if its own conditions are met. And, of course, different revolutionary stakeholders don't agree at all with that kind of dialogue. Where do you stand on this? It's a big question.
Negotiation between SAC and NUG is right now is impossible. It's for sure. Because the stands are quite different. There is no margin to discuss. For me, I think dialogues we need dialogue to understand each other and to find a pathway forward, because we cannot eliminate all people, like military supporter, the religious, Mapata and other parts, like there's so many people, like, and also the USDP members. Like there's so many people supporting the regime. So at some point we need to think about reconciliation. Also, we need to think about how to move forward. But right now it's impossible, I think, because like the current the spring movement is coming out of a strong reaction to military, and we don't have clear direction of how to move forward yet. Actually, we say democracy, we say federal, but still, even among the anti-military regime, we don't have a clear pathway forward. So we are more driven by the grievance toward military than a vision toward future. So in that stage, we have more hate than a desire for the future. So in that sense, it is right now, it is very difficult, because right now from both sides, it's very radical, very hardliners, how can I say, very rigid, because this is a war. It's a war mentality there. So I think in the future, things might be changed, but in given current condition, it is almost unlikely that the negotiation. But another aspect is that, for me, yeah, negotiation we need to do, but we can also rely on the political dialogue again. Because sometimes when we say dialogue, like we are like saying like between SAC and NUG alone. But for me, the core philosophy of nonviolence is to change with words, to change the heart. Actually, we need to talk more, even in all the sectors, in all the stakeholders, among all the stakeholders. So that's, I think, current struggle. The political dialogue has been dead. The NUCC has been deadlocked. And we cannot talk much in current discourse, like even among the pro-democracy actors, so-called pro-democracy actor. So that's a current dimension that we need to focus on, how to bring dialogues among this group, like between young and old, between different like oppositions and different other groups. So like third parties, and so this kind of thing like we need to consider. Yeah. For me, there are so many things we need to reflect and we need to have dialogue and debate on. And among them, it's a debate we need to make on is about the nonviolent activisms, nonviolence movement, whether we should restart or rethink about that. I would encourage that because like in the early days, we say like the Spring Revolution started with the enormous power of nonviolence. But it's only lasts for like a few months. It's only lasts a month or two. But the arms struggle has been for 4 years, and we don't know how it will end. So right now, I think it's a good time to reflect on how to reimagine, how to re-understand nonviolence. Because I understand lots of the people think that we try our limits, like all the ends in February of 2021. But for me, yes, on the movement, on the mobilization level, yeah, the amount of participation is enormous. But there are so other dimensions that we can rethink of, like the strategy, the structure, the institution, building, the movement ideas. If we put that ingredients with the participation that people are actually want to involve, they want to involve in the movement, then I think there are so many change we can start from the bottom up. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Ye Htet, for all your opinions on the revolution, resistance, and justice. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
And anyone who wants to look into Ye Htet's organization, that's Freedom Fighter Myanmar, the website's in the show notes, as well as a link to his op-ed that was published in Frontier Myanmar last Friday. And I hope you all enjoyed this week's conversation on some of the big questions behind reform and revolution in Myanmar. Let me remind you that we are happy to receive your emails. Please send them to whimyanmar@proton.me. But also, our listener survey is still active, so please check that out in the show notes and fill it out if you haven't already. And also, if you're listening to this episode on the day of its release, well, first, go you. But also, remember that tonight, March 27 at 7 p.m. Thailand time, Frontier Myanmar is hosting an online live panel event for members. Frontier's editor-in-chief, Ben Dunant, will ask 3 top commentators, can Myanmar's scam industry survive? Thanks again for keeping up with what's happening in Myanmar. Farewell and take care.